If you watched our recent review of Near Protocol, you'll know that it's a project that's seeing a lot of exciting developments, particularly in relation to AI. In fact, Near CEO and co-founder Illia Polosukhin was one of the 8 former Google employees credited with writing a paper that Wired magazine called, and I quote, the most consequential tech breakthrough in recent history. So when we heard Illia was going to be here in Dubai, we knew we had to pick his brains about AI, crypto, Near Protocol, and a lot more. Here's what we talked about. So Illia, great to be joined with you here in Dubai. Thank you so much for coming into the studios. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for inviting me.
No, of course. And thank you for the reschedule because as we spoke about off air, the weather has been pretty crazy. So much to discuss. I know you spoke with a member of the Coin Bureau team a few months ago. And since then, we have seen more of a presence of AI and AI-related cryptos. And this has been a narrative that you are kind of a front runner in AI. And just to give some context, so you recently spoke at the NVIDIA conference, and the president of NVIDIA actually gave you all a GPU NVIDIA hardware with a handwritten note that had said, you have transformed the world. And I just want to talk about the transformative AI paper and the impact that it's had on AI, because to read into it is really, really a fascinating journey. So I'm wondering if you can just give a little bit of a explainer on what the impact it had.
Yeah, so, for the context, before crypto, in previous life, as we say, I was an AI researcher. Pretty much, I was excited about AI, I think, since I was like 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. And even in high school, I was doing some small things. And then I ended up working for a machine learning company and then joining Google Research. And Google Research was a really interesting place because you had a ton of smart people kind of advancing the state of the AI, and specifically deep learning was just picking up in 2013 after first few things happened with like cat neuron and some other like word embeddings. And we had an interesting challenge, which was kind of my core belief, and still is, and it's now validated, is that language is a way we can teach machines to actually understand the world. Mm-hmm. Because through vision, for example, there's thousands of species that can see, but only one species that can think and talk and answer questions. Yeah. And so we're working on language, but the problem was we could not build something that was fast enough, because we as humans, we read one word at a time. I give you a book, you need, depending on how fast you read, like a few hours, 8 hours, etc. And that's not what we expect from computer. From computer, we give a book, we say, okay, give me an answer now, yeah. Right? So that was kind of the core challenge we were facing. And obviously, like these companies as well as like in general, we have a lot of text data. So we want to feed all that to this model, and we want it to know everything, right? We don't want it to be like a human who knows something. We want it to know everything. And so that's how transformers were born, from kind of some of this premise. And they really leverage the idea that these GPUs and kind of some of the other accelerators are extremely parallelizable hardware. It doesn't need to read one word at a time. It can read all words at the same time and then make sense of them and reason about them. And that's why, in a way, like original model was take, the whole document and then transform it into the answer. That's why kind of one of the reasons for name transformers. Now, we published a paper in 2017. It was, definitely noticeable paper back then, but I don't think anybody expected that it's going to like transform the world in a very little way. But there was interesting glimmer because it was clearly like able to learn things that, previous architectures couldn't. And it was, extremely fast, extremely scalable. And so what happened with then OpenAI, Illia Sutskever, pretty much bet on this architecture, mm-hmm. and they scaled it up. They trained larger models on more data, and they showed that it's not just kind of language model, meaning, it understands statistics, but actually it starts to do reasoning and kind of able to, have kind of sophisticated understanding of the world. And this in turn, obviously, now is ChatGPT. It's also all these other tools that we see kind of popping up. And I think we'll see a lot more advancements happening as well. And yeah, I'm excited both to see this because that's kind of was, both my core hypothesis that I went into doing deep learning, as well as I think I'm excited also to continue to contribute to that. And, we'll have some of the AI efforts as well on our side, pushing the envelope there.
And you've been extremely modest talking about it because a lot of Sam Altman has spoken out saying he doesn't think you guys realize just how impactful this has been. People have said, if you guys, this could have created the ChatGPT wouldn't be where it is. And some of the leading AI programmers have said this has impacted the field enormously. So I think on behalf of everyone that's been watching this space, it's just an honor to speak to you about it and a real pleasure.
We interrupt this program for an emergency crypto weather forecast. Get ready for a whirlwind of savings. We're seeing a high pressure sign-up bonus system forming in the Northeast, with some exchanges offering up to $60,000. Lush. In the South, we'll be seeing some heavy discounts on hardware wallets, so watch out for those if you're going to be out and about. And then, over in central areas, there's a high chance of trading fee discounts, which should be setting in later on, up to 60% off there. Amazing! For a more comprehensive forecast, visit the Coin Bureau deals page using the link in the description. These deals are red hot, so make sure to take all necessary precautions. That's all for the forecast. Now back to our scheduled program.
Now let's move on to AI and crypto and these forces coming together. How is AI and cryptocurrency working together currently? And then I guess if we look into the future, where has it got room to run?
Yeah, I think, there's kind of multiple dimensions here, right? I would start with philosophical and then we get more practical, right? Sure. So philosophically, the challenge we have with, any for-profit company is that they naturally need to grow their revenue. And what it means is when they have hands on this kind of intelligence tooling, right, that now is, in a way, when we interact with it, we don't have as the same guardrails we have when you click on a link in Google, right? You kind of feeling you're talking with a friend or with an advisor or with, a scientist or with a writer. And so the problem is these models now can affect your judgment and can affect how you perceive things, what you buy very easily. And again, kind of philosophically, there's a challenge, which is for a profit company, you always need to post more revenue. That's if you stop doing that, your multiples decline, your stock price crashes. And when you already have all the users, let's imagine Google, right, already has 2 billion users, right? It's really hard to, find another billion of users who are not using Google. You need to actually grow revenue per user, which means either users need to, have more money or you need to extract more money from the users you have. And so this is where philosophically there's a clash because these models should be serving us individually, but they end up serving this kind of revenue generating for-profit company. And it's not because individual people in the company are evil. It's because the structure kind of leads to that outcome. And I've being in that system, you optimizing, this is how you should I be launching this model? Mm-hmm. Well, you run an A/B test and you see if it generates more revenue, right? And so you automatically trying to figure out what would generate more revenue, which in turn will result in more and more ways how to affect people's behavior.
Yeah.
So that's a philosophical idea that we need a different model that is, I call it user-owned AI, right? Where the AI is on your side. It serves your individual needs and kind of your well-being and your financial success. And then through that lens then allows to navigate internet, communicate with others, and being able to kind of provide you this intelligence. Now, how do we achieve that, right? Well, the kind of at the core, we need open source models because for them to be able to run on your side, right, you either need to run them yourself on your device or being able to prove that whatever result you're getting is indeed correct.
Yeah.
And that is impossible to do if you don't have the model to be open source. Now, even more important, you have an open source model, you want to know what data went into it. Because right now, let's say I'm sitting in Google, I'm deciding what data goes into this model. And again, it's not because of this evil master plan, but most of internet is people speculating about random things. Do you want to have somewhere somebody deciding, should Alex Jones' website be included in the training data? Mm-hmm. Should QAnon website be included in training data? And some people say yes, some people say no, right? And but right now we don't have the visibility in those decisions. And so number one use case for crypto is data curation, data labeling, data augmentation. So on Near, for example, we've had for 3 years a Near Crowd, which is a data labeling platform. We had a few thousands of people working every day for creating and curating data pretty much for machine learning.
Yeah.
But kind of expanding that, there's a lot more use cases there around data sets and making sure that we have kind of visible public data sets curated by communities. And then this can be now used for machine learning training. So then second part is okay, well, how do we do this training and kind of infrastructure side, right? And so there's a lot of people experimenting what's possible here. Mainly, right now, I would say it's still in the research phase because the complexity of, let's say, I'm giving you an answer, right, from a model, and you're I don't believe you, prove it to me. And it's actually really, really hard, this problem, because these models are, even smaller models, 7 billion parameters, it's, requires kind of, 7 teraflops of pretty much floating point operations, right? 7 billion operations, right? And so it's comparatively to what we do with smart contracts, where we have maybe 10,000 operations, it's incomparably larger. And so this only right now makes sense for highly kind of expensive decisions, right? If you move $1 million based on a language model decision, you will, you're okay waiting for a ZK proof that costs 100 to 100,000 times more than running the model. Mm-hmm. If you're just trying to write an article, you're probably not gonna wait for that. So that there's those trade-offs, but that space is very important because it gives this new primitives of probability, of ability to maintain this. Finally, I think there's a whole space of applications, both from how AIs can use blockchain to communicate to each other, to have a marketplace of work, as well as how can we use AI to access blockchain? How do we simplify the interface? How do we make it easy to just hey, I need to do this, and it finds and figures it out for you without you needing to navigate every single thing. So I would say a pretty wide range of applications. And in a way, I believe these technologies will actually kind of merge. We'll see a lot of the, it's the same as there was databases, there was web servers, there was all these separate technologies that just now kind of one stack that people just use for building, applications and websites. And nobody's hey, we're, MySQL startup, or we are, Apache startup. It's no, it's just we're application, and then we have all the technologies behind the scene. So I think we're going to that direction, but it'll take kind of few iterations and a lot more infrastructure built out.
Yeah, I was listening to a panel that you had uploaded onto the Nia YouTube channel, and you'd said that if you ever wanted to infiltrate, because AI obviously uses data sets, if you wanted to infiltrate the minds of hundreds of millions of people, you would just put out content on different forums and you would push a specific bias or narrative. And then if that was to get picked up by AI data sets, that was how you impression the millions, the masses. It is quite a terrifying thought. So I think the use case for the why of blockchain is more important now than ever.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's not just terrifying, it's probably happening right now. That's kind of the thing is it's really hard to right now discern that. And so, we need some way to have, I call it cryptographic reputation for content, right? So, I mean, to give you an example, which is not AI, right? Let's say you published an article, right? Somebody goes and edits in the browser, edits the title, takes a screenshot and puts it on Twitter. Now, everybody thinks you published that, because your name is under, it looks like your website, even though the title is completely bogus. Yeah. Right? That is current state of the world. Is people can mislead each other extremely easily, and we don't have a way to hover over it and see that this is actually completely fake. Right? So we need a way to pretty much, for any piece of content, image, or paragraph document have a way to pretty much navigate who published it, what is the provenance of this, and potentially even have community notes, right?
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, this then, when you do feed this into a training of a model, you can now use this information to decide, oh, I don't want to take things that like clearly a bunch of people indicated as a fake content, right? Or this is a clear bias of specific. And so like then you can have curation kind of over this, allowing you to provide this. And all this is facilitated by cryptography and blockchain.
And AI for content creation, this is something that Nia has mentioned is possibly an area of focus in the future. What kind of things are you looking at in your roadmap for this?
So we are, there's like two things. One is we want to make sure we have all the right infrastructure for people who are building different applications and kind of focusing. So like we have, applications around agents and kind of creating worlds and all this building on top of your infrastructure. Now, we're looking more at how do we get more software itself and enable creators kind of to build not just write content or make a video, but also create software pretty much. Because in a way, software is like the most engaging kind of creation you can have. You can also have it for yourself, right? You can have your custom applications, or you can have it as a way to share, to tell the story, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's, so this is where we're focusing on, and this is kind of how we want to enable more creators to become builders and makers in a way, kind of in a more broader sense. Mm-hmm. Now, on the more content data set side, we're looking at how do we incentivize creators going forward to continue like putting out content in the world of AI. And here, again, important to understand that a lot of the current kind of approach to monetization of content, right? Let's say you put out an article. Yeah. The challenge will be that, some model will read it, and then, my daily update will just have a summary of that, right? Mm-hmm. And so the economics of the kind of attention and advertisement is going to be changing.
Yeah.
And so how do we actually build a creator economy going forward in such a way that respects the creators, but also understand that now a lot of the content creation is actually training data or inference data for the models. And so how do we reward for that? So I think that's kind of, again, this is more incentive and data part. Yeah. But I think it's extremely important because it kind of, I say this controversial statement, but I think copyright is going to die.
Okay.
And it will, there'll be a lot of lawsuits, and we already have a lot of lawsuits right now, people suing OpenAI for using copyrighted data. But as an example, it's really hard to trace down if the model used some data.
Yes.
But at the same time, clearly there was a value in the data that went into it. So how do we attribute that? How do we reward for that? And how do we create a new model that is actually with that in mind? And so that's kind of also one of the pieces we're working on to really use blockchain to facilitate that.
Okay. So let's hope blockchain can help before I get an AI replacing me in my job. Okay, so let's move on to AI-related cryptos and the investment funnel, both for kind of a larger scale, but also for retail investors. Because if we look at kind of Microsoft and Google, billions invested into AI. What does this mean for the AI-related tokens in the landscape? Is this bullish for them, or is this trying to play catch-up with the large entities?
Obviously it depends on the token, right?
Yeah, true.
But I think, again, maybe token in principle, we have this kind of spectrum, right, mm-hmm. where we have on one side extreme super corps, right, top 3 of the Fortune 500.
Yeah.
They're investing tens of billions, hundreds of billions at this point, actually, into the hardware and kind of training models. And obviously, as I said, the challenge that we see is that because they're not open sourcing, they're not providing kind of visibility in what goes into this, at the end, this one way or another benefits them to generate more revenue and kind of solidify them even more in this position. Mm-hmm. We now have in the middle startups that are trying to build an alternative, right?
Yeah.
Like not Web3 startup, Web2 kind of traditional AI startups. And the challenge they have is they kind of in this valley where they don't have enough money to build like extremely large models. They don't have, like they either need to like really niche out and kind of try to solve specific problem. But if they're trying to do like foundational open source models like that are open and they are end up not generating as much revenue to justify their valuation that they raise money to build these models in the first place. And so we see now some of the startups actually failing and being acquired or kind of being acqui-hired into this megacorps, right? So kind of the reality is the Web2 model doesn't work for like creating a competitive environment.
Yeah.
And so Web3 is the only way actually where both the markets and the expectations are on a different scale, right? You can create a network where, in layer one to get good examples, where the projection of, that we're going to have billions of users, right, is on 5-7 year horizon, not next year. And right now in AI, in kind of traditional AI space, everybody expects you to make $1 billion next year.
Yeah.
So I generally think Web3 right now is a place for AI companies, even Web2 AI companies, to come in because it's a different capital formation and it gives a different expectations. And the terminal state is better because the terminal state, your users own the network, and so they don't gonna push you to kind of become this extractive corporation as well. So I think from my perspective, and I've talking with my kind of AI friends as well who started companies, I'm like, you guys should come to Web3.
Join us.
Yeah, because this is actually a better, both like from a capital formation and from kind of philosophical state. And now actually Web3, so on Near we have over 10 million monthly active. We have 1.5 to 2 million daily active users. We actually have a distribution that all of these companies looking for as well.
Yeah.
So some of my friends who build like AI gaming, for example, they are for them to go to market, they need to go to Google and Facebook ads, right? Which are in a way their competitors as well on the AI side,
Yeah.
and need to spend a ton of money acquiring users. Versus in Web3, because you can share an ownership in the network itself while you're acquiring users. You can go and kind of create this massive referral effect and then also reward people for being early and participating and then create a better network effect of your product as well and get more data. So it's a better go-to-market as well. So you have better capital formation, better go-to-market, and better values and philosophy. So you should be coming to Web3.
So for anyone watching, you guys should be coming to Web3. So I'm curious to get your outlook then when it comes to differentiating between AI tokens in the market, in the ecosystem that is Web3, tokens that have real utility, that are investing in a contributing ecosystem versus those that maybe are just hyping on the back of the AI buzzword. What kind of things would you say for a retail investor are fundamental to look out for as being they've either got it or they don't? This is how you move forward with your investments.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a hard problem, right? I'm definitely not in a trading kind of job. So from a builder perspective, right, the things I'm looking at are, does the team have AI experience, right? Do they know kind of the challenges?
Yeah.
Especially for infrastructure teams, right, their customer is AI companies, right? So if they don't have kind of AI expertise themselves, they don't actually know what AI companies need.
Yeah.
So that's usually kind of my first, check. The other check is, again, do they understand the business? What is the complexity and how to look at the, again, are you going after Web3 AI? You're doing Web3 AI and you're going after Web3 AI, right? That's a very small niche market. It's going to cap your growth for sure.
Yeah.
Or you're going after kind of AI companies and how you're doing that. Are they interested in this? I think there's a lot of interesting applications that can use AI, right? Which is, again, will be valuable and value add, but will not be like, this is the AI project. It's going to be like an application that has a AI kind of component, and that's actually pretty normal. Like that's how AI been used for decades. I think that makes a lot of sense, and then you just look at like how much value can AI tooling, AI capabilities bring to this application, how much faster growth, etc. I think the kind of like from my perspective as well is, can they kind of articulate beyond just kind of AI Web3 like hype? Like, can they articulate why what they're doing is better than what right now there's like 50 companies doing every single thing, right? So like, why are they actually better than those alternatives and centralized alternatives as well? Because the thing is, like, just saying I'm decentralized is not enough, right? It needs to be better than a centralized alternative.
Yeah.
And so, like, just to give you an example, when you're saying, hey, I'm doing inference, decentralized inference, but there is centralized alternatives, right, that are doing this, you need to actually be cheaper than that. And it's actually really, really hard, like economically really hard to do that.
Yeah.
And so you can prop it, you can like give people points or, airdrop for using it, but like eventually the costs will balance out. So you need to have a clear reason why your solution will be cheaper. And that, I think, is one of the probably bigger struggles. The flip side of this, I think there's a lot, again, on the data side, I think there's so much more opportunity that people kind of not exploring right now, just because data is kind of like this, it's a gold and it's a war zone, right? As I said, like because of copyright, because of this legal thing. And I think like there's an opportunity there to really kind of have massive Web3 startups that are really providing utility, even for Web2 and kind of traditional companies, because they themselves will be struggling to kind of coordinate people, to collect data, to curate, to do all those things.
So you mentioned that like we're really just scratching the surface with the potential of what can be done and also what Web3 can do to really combat the centralized AI entities in Web2. Is it too late for people to invest in AI, in your opinion?
I mean, it's never too late, right? I think that's one lesson we've learned through like 100 years of markets. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now let's take a look at the race for Web3 and onboarding the next billion users. And I think one thing that we've spoken about on the channel several times is the user interface of Nia and how easy it is to use, for example, the wallets that you guys provide. And UX and UI is a really fundamental part of, like, as you mentioned, a Web3 competitive sales pitch is all good and well, but it actually has to be a better user interface than Web2. So what are some of the challenges that come with a good UX and UI and building around Nia protocol and scaling?
Yeah, so when we started, actually, we were not planning to build a blockchain. We wanted to use a blockchain to solve our own problem.
Yeah.
And it was this crowdsourcing data labeling for our AI startup. And the challenge we faced was this weird state where you're saying, hey, we want to pay people for work. So we want to hire some people. But the first thing they need to do is go and buy some crypto.
Yeah.
Right. And if you actually go and do that, it's like 33 steps and takes like 30 minutes on a good day.
Yeah.
Right. When your KYC doesn't get like declined or something. Right. So it's really weird. Like, hey, I want to pay people, but the first thing you do, like, you need to buy shares of this company if you want to work for this company, kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
So this is where, and obviously like installing extensions, figuring out what the seed phrases are, like 0x hashes, like all of that is kind of detracting. Even if person is technical, like it's still a detractor.
Yeah.
So Nia from the day one kind of like wanted to solve all that. Like, how do we make it really easy for people to come in on board, not worry about kind of the kind of crypto side of things before they actually have something, right? But still be self-custodial, have, security features, be able to leverage a lot of the like kind of functionality that blockchain accounts provide. And so we built kind of a native account abstraction. We have meta transactions. We have kind of the wallets are providing a different experience. We have kind of accounts have a name, like human readable name. And so a lot of this being built from the start. Now, the one realization that we had some kind of at the end of 22 was that we focused really on near, and we kind of created the near experience. And so, through 23, we saw massive onboarding of users, right? We went like from barely scratching like 1 million to like 10 million monthly actives, even more over 23. But the challenge was, at the same time, there's like hundreds of other chains with, different parts of economy being built in different places.
Yeah.
And so that's where kind of this concept of chain abstraction came in, which is, we kind of abstracted the near chain, but like if you say, well, let's abstract all chains, right? Let's make sure that as a user, you don't even need to think about any blockchain, but you can use everything. And that is kind of the core of what we've been building. And again, it's a stack of different tools to enable that. But the kind of core piece is this ability for near accounts and smart contracts to transact on other chains. And so through that functionality now, you can have a, let's say, Telegram wallet that, it's really easy to share, it's really easy to open, you don't need to deal with seed phrases, etc. But you can, open an app directly in it, transact, and that app can be on Solana, or can be a Bitcoin ordinals marketplace, or can be, Dodge, leveraging, whatever, right? So like any of this is like all available through one access, and you did not like set up different wallets, figured out transaction fees, bridges, like none of that is needed.
Yeah.
And also then you have kind of an app store like experience where you can find all these apps and kind of navigate this. So that's, we've had a lot of this infrastructure built. We now have the distribution platforms with these millions of users. And so now we see this starting to roll out and kind of provide this extremely kind of smooth experience, not just for near apps, but also like for the broader Web3 ecosystem.
Wow. So you're probably able to see then what kind of things you're going to expect from the next AI cycle within Web3. What kind of trends are you seeing emerging? You mentioned kind of ease of use interface there. We spoke a little earlier about AI integrated with content creation. Is there any other narratives that you're like, okay, in the next AI cycle, these are the things that we're going to see integrated?
I mean, one thing that's like not a crypto part, but definitely already popular in kind of outside of crypto, and I think crypto will just add gasoline to it, is the kind of the character AI style. Mm-hmm. So pretty much being able to communicate with different characters, with different celebrities, like with their pretty much a bot that talks like them. But also, through that you can have like your own, like there's actually Illia bot that you can talk to that's trained on all my data. So like those kind of things, like I think with adding some of the crypto incentives, adding some of the people curating new characters and creating new characters and then earning some revenue from people kind of doing conversation with them, like that creates like a new economy that, again, I think blockchain can facilitate. And so I see there's like few startups doing that right now, and I think there will be like a lot more interesting things coming out. And it hits this kind of need for people to communicate, right? And like having this kind of more open, and also can help us bootstrap decentralized social, because it's really hard to pull everyone in. But if you have a bunch of also AIs kind of augmenting the experience of decentralized social, we actually had that for a while now. Like on Near Social, we had some pretty much AI bots like who are talking and kind of responding to people and posting news and stuff like this. Like you're kind of able to create like more activity and bootstrap that easier. So I think there's like interesting pieces like that again, Web3 allows to do an interesting go-to-market that Web2 kind of can struggle with, and be able to either raise money or even pay for some of the infrastructure that's needed on the back end to bootstrap this until it's sustainable.
And within Near now, if we look at kind of 2024, we're almost halfway through the year. Are there any projects or partnerships that you are particularly excited about, that you're working on, that you maybe are able to share with us? I
mean, just to mention like few things that are already happening, right? So we have Kaichen Cosmos, like number one, number two app in Web3. They have over 8 million kind of users. They have 2 million daily actives on their app. They're actually AI startup from the start. They were doing AI like for past 7 years.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the things they do is around how to now do like this user-owned AI. So how do you use your data on your phone to best give you recommendations for shopping, for content, for kind of interacting with more Web2 traditional things, but leveraging Web3, have the Web3 economy, loyalty points, etc. So they're working kind of on this protocol. I think there'll be some exciting things happening out of that. There is few different projects which are kind of offering a way to, I mean, like kind of more, it's more fun, like, but so there's a project called ShieldGPT.
Okay.
And so the idea there is these models are actually susceptible to, you can convince them in things, right?
Okay.
And so this idea is actually leveraging that. And so you need to put some meme coin, and then you're convincing the model to rebalance the treasury it has to buy some more of this meme coin.
Oh. And we know that the degen meme coin communities are a pretty persuasive bunch for the
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting, because it serves a few functions. One is it's an interesting like PvP kind of community versus community of the meme coiners. On the other side, it actually serves as a good data collection process, because now we see how these models are being jailbroken actively.
Yes.
And it's a good platform then to launch new meme coins and create offer new services around that. So they work on some of that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting experiments like that I think are crypto native, combine kind of the user needs and like current narratives, and then bringing all that in like a cool, fun project, right? Yeah. So I think some of that is also happening and kind of exciting.
And it's also an interesting way to garner the kind of consensus of the community without having to kind of overrule the paying for press releases and exposure. So you can still have a community effect that then incorporates into AI.
Yeah.
Interesting. Nice. Well, finally, on a last note, is there any other events that people that are following Nia, can catch you in for the rest of 2024? I know it's a big ask because you're on the road a lot and a busy guy. Maybe NiaCon 2024. Do you guys have a date and location set?
We're working on announcing that, so stay tuned. And I'll be at DAppCon, East Berlin, SafeCon, and at ECC, and obviously DevCon. So yeah,
awesome.
So stay tuned for that.
Illia, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciated it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that was my recent conversation with Illia from Nia Protocol. As you can imagine, Illia is a very busy man, and we were really grateful to have the time to speak with him. It's safe to say the intersection between crypto and AI is filled with potential, and we'll be keeping a close eye on what Illia and the rest of the team at Nia get up to over the coming months. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.